So I am the Personnel Director at the City of Lawrence. My name is Gina LaGreca. So just a little bit about me. I received my undergraduate degree from Northeastern University in Boston. I then went to law school at Suffolk University Law School. I graduated and I took the bar and was admitted in Massachusetts, New York, and California. Why I did that, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But it's been great. I have experience with a lot of different states, municipalities. I actually got my start in the Essex County District Attorney's Office. I began in Lynn, and then I came up to Lawrence, so two quiet cities, right? And now I've been in the City Attorney's Office here in Lawrence, and I transferred to my current role about a year ago. So here's just a table of contents, just a few of the things that I'm going to be talking about today and summarizing my role with the city. Personnel, it's really labor relations. There's a lot of HR aspects to the job, but there's also a lot of legal aspects as well. So it's almost like employment law, but for the city. This is the composition of the department. So there's me, who's the director, and then I have 3 additional staff that work underneath me. One of them is the confidential secretary. She's really just my right hand in everything that I do. Our department handles the benefits for the entire city as well as all of the retirees. So we have a benefits coordinator as well. And then we have our personnel aide who sits in the front and answers the phones and assists with basically everything. She's wonderful, our personnel aide as well. So we have about 700 plus active employees with the city. We are responsible for everything related to their human resources needs and labor relations needs. We also have, under our jurisdiction, I would quote, all of the retirees. So that encompasses all city retirees as well as all of the retirees who used to work for the school department. So that's a lot of people. I was trying to get a guesstimate for you, but it's about 5,000, I would say, people that we deal with. And so this is the composition of my department. Then above me is, I'm technically part of the financial division, so I report to the CAFO, the Chief Administrative Financial Officer, and his name is Mark Iannello, and we also, of course, report to Mayor Brian DePena. So one of the biggest things I think that people think of, and it's accurate, is that we do all of the hiring and recruitment for the city. So this includes doing the job postings for vacancies that exist within the city, as well as we certify the applicants, which means if you apply to a job in the city, the way it works is it has to be up on our website for 10 days. There's a scoring system that's used under the city charter, and we score the applicants according to that. The top 5 scoring applicants will appear at the top of the list, and then that's the certified applicants. Once that occurs, we send that list to the department head that's requesting to fill the vacancy. They can conduct interviews and make a selection. Depending on who the appointing authority is, typically it's the mayor for most city departments, but there may be a board such as the library board or such as city council that is the appointing authority. That individual, whoever that may be, will confirm the selection that the department head has made, approve or disapprove, and if they approve, they move forward to the next step, which is where our office again gets involved. We assist with all of the new hire paperwork. So in order to work for the city, you'll be subject to a favorable Corey check, which is your criminal background check, as well as a physical and a drug screen. So our department also handles, in particular, all of the hiring for the civil service positions, which is the police department and the fire department. And that it's its own separate thing, because this is all governed by the state. So it's very different from the rest of the hiring for the city. So for civil service, this will be our first responders. The state steps in, they have certain rules about the hiring, promotion, and termination and discipline of any employees that are covered by the civil service laws. So in order to apply for those positions, such as a police officer position, you would have to take the civil service exam. The state will rank and place you, and then we would ultimately get your name depending on how many vacancies we're requesting. In those positions, there's a couple different requirements, just depending on the department, but again, it's all overseen by the state. And my office will be the liaison between whichever department is requesting to hire and the state. Labor relations. So here's where, this is a lot of employment law, right? And this is where we get into kind of my favorite part of the job. Most people would probably not like this, but it's all the negotiating of the contracts with the respective unions. The city has a lot of union jobs. There are 12 different unions that we negotiate with, and I have them listed here. And basically unions, they have contracts with the city which are called collective bargaining agreements. Those collective bargaining agreements outline different benefits, rules regarding vacation time, holiday time, different rates of pay according to what job you're in. They also describe the different rights that you may have as an employee within a union, whether you are entitled to notice in a hearing prior to being disciplined, if, you know, what certain things are grounds for termination versus what are not. If you are not in a union, you are considered an at-will employee, which means that basically you don't have as many protections, but you do have different benefits, which is like there's more movement that you could see in your job and things like that. So there are definitely pluses and minuses. We are a heavily unionized city, so this is a large part of my job. You'll see that there's also a kind of bullet here describing grievances. If a union member is unhappy with something that happens in the city, they have a right to grieve that. That starts the grievance procedure. I handle the grievances. I essentially act as like a mini judge, and I will listen to the complaint of the employee and issue a decision on behalf of the city. I also conduct all of the investigations that are brought to my office. These are investigations that allege things such as harassment, sexual harassment, and retaliation. So what I do is I will listen to a complainant if they are trying to bring forth allegations that may or may not rise to the level of hostile work environment. In the state of Massachusetts, if you make a complaint, your employer, well specifically the city, is obligated to investigate your complaint. So I do the investigations. The way that I do them personally is that I will issue notices of an investigation to everybody that I feel is involved. That would be the complainant, any witnesses, as well as the person who's being complained against. And I will take statements from everybody, any documents, and I will make a report of my findings. There have been times where I have found that the person that's being complained against needs to be subject to discipline. There have also been times that I did a complete investigation and found nothing. So it's an interesting aspect of my job. I really remain neutral. I try to approach every investigation as if I've never met these people before, and I listen to what evidence they have to present to me. And I would say that it's fairly common to have situations where, you know, maybe one employee doesn't necessarily like the other employee. It's less so often that I get cases of true, you know, possibly even illegal behavior. We're very lucky here in the city. We have a great group, but I would be the person that those allegations are reported to, and I would do the investigation. A not so nice aspect of my job is that I also handle a lot of the disciplinary actions across the city. So, you know, it's not always pleasant, but I am here to assist the department heads when it does need to be done. So we in the city practice progressive discipline. We make every effort on our part to not just go from 0 to 100. We will start off with a verbal warning, then try to increase to a written warning, then a suspension, then a termination. We really want our employees to get the message the first time. As with any employer, there are certain times where you're pushed to the point of no return and you really have to discipline the person. But we are fortunate that, again, those circumstances are few and far between. We really try to do a great job of assisting people and trying to help them comply with something unless it's really serious, and then we cannot, you know, ignore certain things. We have an obligation to protect our employees, make sure that they feel safe at work. And if somebody's causing them not to feel safe or is doing something that's wrong that does not represent the views of the city, then we would definitely take action to terminate them or discipline them. As I said before, the civil service laws are a little bit different, but we still get involved with those as well. Our office also handles all employee benefits. So the city offers health insurance from the state. We use GIC, there's a number of different plans. We also have a dental plan through Altus Dental. And these benefits must be selected within 10 days of hire. They commence after 60 days of hire, and they're offered to all permanent employees. We also handle any claims of workers' compensation, which applies to workers who may be injured on the job. So because we're kind of a small department, you notice that there's only 4 of us, we do use third-party administrators for these, but we still act as the liaison who would provide all the information to these companies. We use ExpressNet to do our employee physicals, but we also use them to do any evaluations of employees who may have been injured. This mostly would apply to those who have been injured using heavy equipment, typically DPW. Unfortunately, they're the ones that are out there in the streets. You'll see them cleaning them up, and they're the ones that are most often taking advantage of these situations. And we also use Future Comp, which helps us evaluate our employees' claims and make sure that they get the best treatment possible when they are unfortunately injured. I also am in charge of approving any requests made pursuant to the Family Medical Leave Act, which is a federal law. It's called FMLA, and it will entitle an employee for time off. They will allow 12 weeks off in a 12-month period for certain reasons only. And I did outline those reasons here. I would say the biggest reason why we administer FMLA is because of the birth or adoption of a new child. So that's when you'll see people on maternity leave. This is what they're talking about. And at first, you would go through your own accruals, meaning that you would use your own sick time, vacation time, personal time. However, it will protect your job for up to 12 weeks off. You cannot be fired if you are out for one of these reasons. So my office will take the medical documentation as well as the employee request for this. I personally evaluate them and issue a decision as to whether the request is approved, which again, it's usually maternity leave, so it's for happy reasons, thankfully, and we often do approve them as long as the employee has the correct information supporting the request. We also ensure that the city is in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is called ADA, it's another federal law. Basically, the city, or really any employer, cannot discriminate against you because of some disability that you may have. And furthermore, they must make reasonable accommodations for any disabilities that you may have. A good example of this would be, as you may have seen, the City Hall elevator is broken. If we had an employee that came to work but had a broken leg and could not make it up to the 3rd floor, the city would have to step in and say, what can we do for you? Can we make it so that you could do your job at home? Can we do something else for you? Can we provide a lift for you? These would be accommodations that are made pursuant to ADA. The city must comply with this. We always do, I assure you. We also have an ADA coordinator in the city, and I work with him as well. Any claims of unemployment. So unemployment is actually something that's provided by the state, but the city would pay a portion of it. Those unemployment claims will come into my office. Typically, as long as the request is legitimate, meaning that the person was separated from their employment and they are seeking payments from the state, we don't get involved. However, if somebody resigned voluntarily and then is looking for payments from the state, that might be a time where I say, no. This person resigned, they were not separated without their consent or without a voluntary resignation. So we can dispute it in those cases. And that involves a hearing before the state. I typically represent the city in those. We used to use a third-party provider. However, I think, It's something for me to do. So I will do that happily. I just did one, and then the decision is ultimately up to the state. So typically not involved. If it's something where we don't feel the person should be getting an unemployment payment from the city, then I will be able to dispute that. Record retention. There are so many records in my office. So the personnel department is who's in charge of your personnel record. That is your employee file with the city of Lawrence. There are certain things that the state law requires you to have in your personnel record. So we make sure that anything that is required to go in your personnel record goes in there. We also make sure that anything that's supposed to go in your medical file goes in there. They have to be separate under the state law. Not anybody can just access your personnel file. There's also state laws on that. An employee can ask for permission to view his or her own file, but not just anybody can come in and say, I want to see Gina LaGreca's file. That's not allowed. And we make sure things like that don't happen. We also have to keep certain records for certain periods of time. This is all dictated by the Secretary of State's office. So we make sure that we keep our records as long as we have to and that we keep them in an orderly fashion. So that's pretty much what we do in the personnel office. I would certainly invite you, if you have any further questions, of course you can ask them here, or you can always reach out to me or a member of my staff. So we're located at City Hall on the 3rd floor, Suite 303. Sometimes I'm running around to different departments, but I always try to make sure to answer my email, which is up here. And it's just my first initial and my last name, GLaGreca@cityoflawrence.com. I would also, and I forgot to put this on here, so I truly apologize, but if you are ever looking to apply for a job with the City of Lawrence, please visit cityoflawrence.com. Once you're there, you can go to the personnel department, and it has a list of all of our current job postings. And we keep it very accurate. It's updated every single day. So I do it personally myself, as well as Nola, my confidential secretary, who is wonderful. Please feel free to reach out to her. We really do make sure that it's updated. We always have vacancies. So if you don't see something you like when you check, just check again. You never know, something may come up. That's all I have. Happy to take any questions from you. Yes?
So how did COVID affect your office and what you do?
So I was actually still in the city attorney's office when that happened, but I think it's one of the main reasons why I was selected for this position that I'm currently in. So when I was in the city attorney's office, there were numerous state laws that came out relative to COVID, and of course it was a novel situation that the city had never dealt with before. So I was the attorney in the office who was actually charged with looking at the state legislation, drafting city policies in accordance with that, and enforcing them through the city. Some of those included, how often the guidelines changed with masks, social distancing, etc. Also, at one point there was state paid time off that the city could submit for reimbursement if a person was out with COVID or caring for somebody with COVID. That has since expired, but during the time it was a huge, huge issue. So, that occupied most of my time until recently, actually, when that state law expired. So COVID was a really big deal for our office.
And did Family Leave Act come into play with people asking to take care of family?
So it didn't for me during my tenure. The reason why, I believe, is because the state had in place certain protections where an employee who contracted COVID or was caring for somebody with COVID was actually entitled to this state time off. So they didn't have to dip into their own accruals under FMLA. The state actually allowed up to, I think it was up to 80 hours off and a certain amount of wages. So it was actually better for employees than dipping into their FMLA, which you can only use, once every 12 months, maybe for something else. This was actually better because it was specifically geared toward COVID.
How many current positions do you have available for employment in the city that have gone unfilled?
So truthfully, I did not check the city website before I left.
I had difference.
I'm sorry?
I had more difference. I can help you.
Oh, okay, good. So right now, I would guess that just picturing the website off the top of my head, I would guess that there are about 11 to 12 job postings that are up. And again, that changes daily. In addition, there could be some in the works that, I submit them typically to the mayor for his signature, and then I'll get them up on the website, and I know for a fact more are coming. I have the inside info, so just because there's that many now, there should be more that are coming, certainly. And it's almost like like once those are filled, somebody else could resign. We always have ever-changing positions. And I would like to add, all throughout the city. So if you look on our city website, you will see postings from painter to attorney, to laborer, to airport manager. I mean, there's such a variety of jobs here in the city. My office is lucky that we get to work with every other department to fill them. Yes?
And are all the job postings in Spanish too?
So they are in English, but you could certainly call our office and we could have somebody transcribe them if you needed.
You mentioned earlier that there's a certain criteria or rating.
Yes.
Is there priority if you're a Lawrence resident or Massachusetts resident per se?
No, no. However, certain points will be given based on, for example, there's like veteran status that people look for, bilingual, like a lot of things like that. Certainly physical proximity to the location is a huge deal. It doesn't necessarily go into the scoring, but it would go into your consideration because you would have more ease to get here. And we always are trying to help City of Lawrence residents. We serve the city, so if we could serve by having a resident apply and fill a position, that's an absolute plus for us. Yes.
Was City Hall open during COVID, or did most of the employees want to stay home and work remotely?
So there was a short period of time, so I was actually on a maternity leave when COVID actually shut us down. There was a period of time where people were home, City Hall was not open, and it was kind of different. So at first, in my office and the city attorney's office, it started by only one of us would go in. So it was like on a rotating schedule. I would go in one day and somebody else the next day. Then City Hall shut down completely. I don't know for how long because I was on maternity leave. But then we did reopen and employees were expected to be inside City Hall. Any member of the public was just asked to make an appointment prior to coming. It was also mask required during that time as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How about a round of applause for Gina?
All thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see everybody next month. Thank you.
Thank you.